using this as an inspiration, really, for us as we've gotten together with different groups, whether they be students or staff or administrators.
Teenagers have the best BS detectors on the planet. So when we say we want them to love learning, to be curious and think critically, they don't quite buy it. We actually believe ourselves when we say it. Why wouldn't we want our young people to become innovative and ethical humans? But in our hearts, we know what they've been trying to tell us for a long time. American public high school has failed to keep up. But a long time ago, public high school was a place of radical innovation. Free and accessible schooling was seen as a vital part of democracy that would guarantee equal opportunity for all. Industrialization transformed high school into a place to prepare the future workforce for new jobs in factories and large-scale farms. To ensure that everyone received fair and uniform instruction, we adopted the Carnegie Unit, which quantified learning based on the amount of time a student spends sitting in a classroom. The curriculum shifted to focus on rules, repetition, and small contained problems rather than large ones. Subjects were broken into time-based chunks signaled by a shrill bell. To prepare the teenagers of the early 20th century for factory life, we put them in a pre-factory, and that's where we've kept our teenagers ever since. In the last 100 years, as careers have moved from the industrial to the idea-driven, as global economies have risen and fallen, as women have strengthened the workforce, as the U.S. has welcomed nearly 250 million new people, as we've gone from a Model T to a Tesla and a switchboard to a smartphone, high school has stayed frozen in time. We want our students to think critically, but we make them memorize. We want intellectual curiosity, but we pad the schedule with easy courses. We want innovation, but we teach to a packet. We want self-reliance, but we force them to sit prisoner in the name of learning. Our refusal to act is costing us. America is falling behind in the world, and every year we're losing more ground. But here's the thing, we can fix this. But we have to scrap the blueprint, revolutionize this dangerously broken system, and if we do, if we can completely transform the model for public high school, we think we can change a whole lot more. If we change high school, we can change the future workforce for a complex, competitive world. We can change the poverty rate and the inequity of incarceration. We can change the broken connection between schools and communities. We can change the very building blocks of American society. If we profoundly change high school, we can reach not just the 50 million kids enrolled in public school, but the hundreds of millions who will follow them and the billions of people worldwide that they will impact. It's time to step up. It's time to rethink the model itself and truly innovate. Let's challenge the idea of bodies and seats and 500-page textbooks. Let's teach to the subject, not to the bell. Let's inspire a new kind of knowledge that's agile, creative, and endlessly relevant. Let's apply our astounding ingenuity to one of the largest public systems in the world. Let's truly reimagine what a public high school should be, partnering with the brightest talent in the country. Let's make a renewable system that works for today and tomorrow. Let's honor the beautiful promise the founders of public school made. Let's make a brave leap forward. 50 million kids need us to try. Let's build a super school.
So what I want to share with you is just a few words from our students. We recently got together with some of our seniors to go through a process that I'll explain a little bit later. But just to let you know how this school that's being described here, as much as it may not sound like Forest Hills, it really does still describe us. And it's something that we really need to think about in all of our communities. So students say things like, I am more than a number. We deserve more than 23 minutes to eat our lunches. Our desks are uncomfortable and I'm sitting in a desk all day. You preach preparation for the real world, but you give us busy work. I have 1 hour of homework for your class each night, but I have 7 classes with the same expectation. Why can't I just use the bathroom when I need to? I only have 1 remaining credit for graduation. I would love the opportunity to do some internships. I would help me to get into the real world to learn some stuff. We don't have to run the same schedule every day or every week. I share these tonight just to set the context for why this is so important to us. We are doing wonderfully as a school district, and we want to celebrate that every step of the way. But with a school district with a continuous improvement mindset is always not resting on our laurels. We're reaching for what's next and what more can we become for our students. So we've created, as you know, the strategic plan that and what I'm going to focus on tonight is the pathways and innovation. As we create this collaborative culture, as we start thinking about what pathways and opportunities can we offer for our students, we zero in on these few things. Empowering our students, engaging them in ways by creating master schedules that don't reflect the schedules that we all had when we were in school. And these are some of the very specific deliverables that we're hoping to come out of our work this year. We are hoping that by the end of the year, that kind of came out weird, that we will have a new master schedule that we can offer for our students that provides more flexibility, some on-demand help with intervention or with enrichment, that you don't have to wait till Tuesday or wait to stay after school for a teacher because it's worked inside of the school day. We want to provide some collaboration for teachers. And so we have this dream in mind with how we want this to schedule to look, but we really just see it as like phase 1, part A, as we continue to dream. Secondarily, we want to create a pathway plan. Certainly this is something that will have to happen over time, so what we want to be able to provide for you guys this year is kind of a 3-year plan for the specifics for our students. And lastly, partnerships. It's become very clear to us that there's no way we can move forward. We will just reinvent the same invention if we don't have different kinds of stakeholders around the table with us. So we want to partner with our community. You can't say real world and stay inside of a schoolhouse. And so we want to open our walls to the community, to the world, so that we can have really enriched conversation, enriched opportunities for our students. So what I'm doing tonight is just giving you a preview of all the little things that we've been doing so that you can know that when we come back to you in January or February with these are our results, this is what we're thinking, you have some inkling. And what we've been challenging people to do is really to use what we're calling Moonshot Thinking, really inspired by JFK, of we know we want to make a change. We know we want something more engaging, more empowering for our students. Do we know every detail yet? No, because we want to make sure that we're engaging our families, our students, our teachers, and so we are really working through this process. And one of the key processes that we're using really comes from Stanford University with design thinking. And we are in phase 1 right now, which is really building that empathy. Learning how to walk in somebody else's shoes, look through things through someone else's eyes. And so all the steps that I will explain to you really emphasize here since school was started, the things we've been doing to build our empathy. Oh, back it up. Just back up one, sorry. Recently, we pulled together seniors. They came to Wilson Elementary. They toured the school. They worked through a design thinking challenge to rethink and reimagine their high school. That's where some of the comments that I read came from. And they created prototypes and brought numerous ideas to the table for us to consider. And we know we are going to continue to tap those students because they're really our future here. We have a movement. You keep going since it's not working for me, I guess. This is our teacher voice. Inside of our school system, we have this process we're calling FHSDX, and really the key here is X is the intersection between a big problem and a radical solution. So we've been working to inspire and engage teachers. We have teams at both Anderson and Turpin who are working to present ideas to the administrators to consider. And I do want to take a moment here to say we are not rebranding the school with this process. Erica has worked very hard to get us on the map with FHSD. This was really just something we were doing internally to inspire teachers. And what we do believe is out of this work, there will be big decisions, big things that both Anderson and Turpin and Nagel will all be able to embrace together. So we'll probably continue our work with Erica to package that so it's consumable for people in the community as well as our students who we want to attract to this new way of learning. We had Shadow a Student Challenge. We had administrators who followed a student from the minute they got off the bus until they went home that day. Again, just to be their eyes and their ears. If there was a test in the class, the principals and the assistant principals took those assessments. They wanted to see what it feels like to sit all day, period after period after period, to gain a keen sense and awareness of what a student's day looks like. We've been on school visits. We were actually on one today. We were at Sycamore High School and Deer Park High School, and we virtually met with Marymount High School just to look at how they are rethinking high school. Because again, this isn't Forest Hills just coming up with a problem. This is something all schools are working toward, and we figure that collaborating together, creating new ideas will help our ideas even get better. We've had a team head out to Columbus, and they went to Hilliard to visit the McVeigh Center. And so we're just, again, trying to move from our empathizing to researching and figuring out what's out there, because we're not trying to take a program from one other school and just fit it into Forest Hills. We want to make what's uniquely Forest Hills and that will meet our students' needs. Scott and I are part of a workforce development committee here in the township that's taking a look at what are all the businesses, what are all the resources that we have here in the township? How can we identify those? How can we start working with schools and businesses so that the schools can be more of a pipeline for the needs of our community? And so that work is just underway, but we see it intricately woven into the strategic plan. We want to continue to establish these partners and really look at ways to be very clear to our partners what our needs are so that we can have more effective partnerships. And there can be levels, very similar to how the Forest Hills Foundation creates partnerships, the gold, the bronze, to show people you can give a little or you can give a whole lot. And that whole lot investment might be, we want our students to come and intern in your school system or in your workplace in the senior year, just as an example. So what will we be doing next? We'll be taking all these ideas that we've heard from students, from staff, and in a couple weeks, we are leading an event here. Is it at Nagel Middle School, the November 2nd? Okay, at Nagel Middle School, we're bringing community in, we're bringing parents in, we're conducting a survey just to gather some more information in this area to help design our next steps. And so we'll be pulling in more voices, community, parents, students, staff, prototyping, coming up with a schedule, and we look to be coming back to you in December, January to share some of our thoughts and our hopes and next steps. So, any questions?
Wow.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah,
I will tell you, these administrators, they're taking time out away from their school actually to dig in. They've taken time inside of their school. Their commitment is very strong, and truly without them, this is literally just a bunch of slides. And so they are phenomenal, and I think together we're going to create something really awesome for our students.
Thank you.
So this will be extremely important as we move forward to ensure that there is opportunity for students and parents to participate in the process, because there will most likely be some changes that look different than the typical traditional high school, and we'd like to kind of talk with people about those things so that they have a sense of what's coming. But this vision that we have for secondary education, in my 25 years of being directly related to either secondary education or central office administration, this is the most enthusiastic I've been because of the way that the two high school administrations are working together, along with the Director of Curriculum Instruction and Megan in her work. I think that we have open minds in this school district right now. We have teachers that are coming to the table. We have individuals that are participating in many, many studies and visits. And so I think it's going to be comprehensive. I think it's well overdue in the United States of America in public education, especially at the high school level. And our goal is to have students in a couple of years, about 25% of our senior students experiencing a different senior year. And that will evolve over time, and hopefully we will be able to provide that with great partnerships with our community and support from our administrative staff, as well as students and parents having a voice in that. So a lot of things to come. We will move fast, but we will also move slow to ensure that we are touching all of the bases and people have a clear understanding of what's happening in their high schools.
Thank you.
And thank you, Natasha.
Next up, item 7.4, human resources staffing. Tammy?
What are your handouts doing? I think she put this at your place.
Got it here too.
Green one.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
This evening, you're going to hear a little bit about the HR department and our functions, and most importantly, Susan, these are going to be the areas we're going to spend a little bit of time on, and what we're really going to spend our time on is the staffing. And this is a reconciliation of our FTE, and for those of you who may not be in school, that means full-time equivalency. So if you have 2 half-time teachers, it ends up being 1 FTE. And so this is our reconciliation. What you see in kind of the peach is where we ended our school year last year. And what you see in the white column, October, is where we are at present. And the green column is the change. And so we're going to kind of talk through these just a little bit. Teachers, which of course, that's where we see our largest change, 18.84. And I wanted to let you know what those changes were. As probably many of you in the room know, we added kindergarten, all-day kindergarten this year. 12 and a half of those adds are kindergarten. We also added 2 teachers in 3rd grades in a couple of our buildings, simply because we grew. We grew more than we anticipated. And so we added 2 3rd grades. If you recall, we also added a .5 at Nagel Middle School in the music area. When we made those changes, we heard from some of our community members that they were concerned about that. And so we did add back a .5 music teacher. And then there were 4 teachers that were added at Anderson High School. And you might say, why not Turpin? Well, as Scott just mentioned a few minutes ago, our 2 high schools have been doing such a great job lately of cooperatively working. And last school year, in 16-17, Anderson had some needs. Turpin actually had, I wouldn't say extra staff, but they certainly had the opportunity to do some sharing. And so some of the Turpin staff members, somebody would go over and do a couple bells of science. Somebody might do a couple, half of a day of English language arts. But because both of our high schools actually grew in enrollment this year, Turpin needed that staff back. And so Anderson ended up getting to hire, or having the opportunity to hire 4 teachers across the spectrum. Administrative assistants, the rest of these are not really large numbers. I'd be happy to talk with you about those specifically if you wanted. But most of these are just the ebb and flow of a school. As paraprofessionals, you see we went down 2 in that area, 2 plus a little. And that's based on student needs. Talking with Betsy, we know that we have students who move in and who move out who require additional support, and so that number could change. So again, I wanted to make sure you knew at the end of the day, the reconciliation between the 2 years would be an addition of 15.65 FTE. The next slide just really kind of gives you a little bit of information. We actually, when our demographic report was completed last year, it told us that we were going to have a decrease of about 224 students. However, we did not. We had 162 students, an increase of 162. And so, that's a big number, a swing, that's much bigger than we anticipated. Now, part of that was, again, kindergarten. Now, the demographers knew we were starting all-day kindergarten, so that was factored in, but we still had even greater than what we anticipated. So we have about 80 students more just in our kindergarten this year than we did last year. One of the things that I think has been so great is we continue to ask for our student voice. And so students were asked last year, what kind of courses would you like to have in science, in the area of science? And so because we were able to provide those courses, and with the addition of Project Lead the Way, that's part of the addition also that we had at Anderson and at Turpin, again with that sharing of some of our teachers.
Yeah.
An increased square footage at at Air and Sherwood meant that we added a custodian. And then there were some decreases where we had some restructuring of our personnel in those 2 departments that are listed there, technology and business operations. One of the other things that our office does that it's really very important, We make sure that everyone is compliant with their credentialing, and you can see the numbers there, how many administrators, how many teachers we help get their licenses and so forth. But the biggest number up there are coaches and advisors, about 550, and that's an estimate because some people come to us, with these already and so forth. But that's an estimate of what we do in a year in terms of keeping people with the appropriate credential. We also have labor relations and then negotiations, and I'm very pleased. I don't know if Mrs. Lawver's in here, but I know I see Mrs. Garza, who is a member, and Mr. Rushi, who are both members of our FHTA in the back. And I believe that we have just great relationships with all three of our employee groups. We have regular meetings with them to talk about issues before they become bigger issues. And then, of course, we also, as most people know, we completed our negotiations this past spring. The board had given us some parameters, and I think we were able to work very well within those parameters and have a successful negotiation for the next 3 years. So we're pleased with that. The next one is just about, we also help coordinate the benefits and SWOOSH, which SWOOSH stands for the Southwest Ohio Organization for School Health. And our open enrollment is coming up. We'll be working on that, insurance, wellness committees. And then we also are part of a board for the SWOOSH group. We have 2 members on that. The next page is just kind of a list of some miscellaneous functions that we are responsible for. Recruitment and retention of staff, inter-district transfers that will be coming up soon. Those start in January. Attendance for staff, OTES, OPES, OSAS are all mandated by the state evaluation systems that we have to use. Also, we have contractual evaluations. And then we also make sure that people do their public school works training, which I know is everyone's favorite. Everyone here who works here, that's their favorite. So the next slide, just some future planning. Just wanted to, remind the board that succession planning is always in our mind. Our principals and central office administrators this year are going through a leadership academy. Last year, if you recall, the assistant principals had the leadership academy. Our new APs this year are going through some similar kind of training, not in-house, but yet with the same provider. And in our strategic vision, we have the Leadership Academy to continue throughout the years, but we're not only going to have our administrators, something that we think we need to do is also grow teacher leaders. Not to say that every teacher who participates in this might become an administrator, maybe some will, but also just people who are willing to have their voice and share that with the district. The demographic report, we mentioned that earlier, just a reminder that was completed last year in November. It's not scheduled to be completed again until 2021, so about every 5 years. And then the last slide, just some things I wanted to bring to your attention, some trends that we're monitoring. There continues to be a growing shortage of teachers, especially in the areas that are listed there: high school math, science, world languages, not Spanish as much as some of the, Latin is a difficult, German, those are difficult to find teachers for those. Intervention specialists are very difficult to find. Psychologists are also hard to find. One of the things that we've learned, though, is if we get our postings out early and we're able to bring people in, get those interview process, we are pretty fortunate that we don't typically have a hard time filling those positions. Those positions, when they're hard to fill, are the ones that are after the July 10th deadline for teachers to resign their contracts in other districts. And then it does sometimes become much more difficult. And so we just want to continue to make sure that we are out early and that we get the best teachers that we can, whether they're just coming out of college or the ones that we're kind of inviting to our district from other places. So, there's also a growing shortage of administrators. What we find are there are lots and lots of applicants, but very few who are qualified. Forest Hills is not typically a place that you start your administrative career. It's in some in-house people, but not as much. It seems like we try to get people who have a little bit of seasoning. And so, again, that's just something we need to watch. I think that is why the Leadership Academy will be very important, so we can continue to grow some people of our own. And then substitutes. It's really hard to find substitutes, especially in the area of bus drivers, paras who are willing to work with students who have high needs, special education students with high needs, and then custodians. People just don't want to come and be substitutes for that. So we're working with our other departments to try to find better subs, not better subs, more subs. And then future projects for us would be, we would like to convert the current database we have, which is very antiquated, to a cloud-based system. Multiple times we've looked at systems. There's not a really good school-based system out there. One's being built, and we're looking at that one, but it's not quite ready. We know we need to improve our onboarding system, especially for support staff as well as evaluation. I'm part of a group called the Southwest Ohio Personnel Administrators, and we're working on some of these things collaboratively. And then we also want to develop a deeper pool of substitutes. So if anyone's looking to sub, want some extra money for Christmas, there's a great opportunity. And so that's just kind of a brief overview of what we do. I know you were mostly interested in the staffing information. So do you have any questions?
Do you find that you guys switched a couple years ago for your substitutes joined a bigger group? Do you feel like that has helped you or hurt you?
In
Forest
many-
Hills in general.
I think it is probably, it's a mixed bag in reality, because, we are sharing substitutes with many districts, especially on the east side.
Right.
We are kind of in the middle as far as our compensation goes. We're not the highest, we're not the lowest. But we have a lot of people, we actually have the highest fill rate in the consortium. So people want to be here, they want to sub here. But when we have days like we did, was it last Friday, there are 120 people out, we can't fill them. We can't get everything filled. And it's unfortunate, but I do, I think there are some good things to it, so. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up, item 8.1, board discussion. Any topics for discussion today? All right, next up, facility update. Rebels?
Mr. Zimmer?
Just a brief update of where we are on the projects. And I was out today, so I'm answering 100 emails while I'm sitting back there. Anderson, the new science rooms and auxiliary gym continue to be worked on. And Phase 4 area, which is the office area from the administration, has been vacated because they're in a new office, and so demo has begun in that area as well. I believe last weekend we removed some dirt at the detention area, which now gives us the opportunity to start the undercut and replacement of those soils. The exact when that will start is undetermined right now. Maddox, we have a phase that was completed just recently. Steve, Phase 7 is what classrooms?
7 was just completed in November 4th.
6 will be completed, and that is 7 is what classrooms? And 6 is? I only know them by phases, and so that's why I rely on our principals. And that will give us 2 remaining. This contractor has done an unbelievable job of making up lost time. Approximately 3.5 months, and hopes to complete around Christmas is our current anticipated date. And by contract, he was going to complete in February. So he's done an excellent job, both for himself. The quicker he's out, the better he does. So.
Complete like the whole project.
Yes, yes. So Maddox has been one of our stars. Mercer, the remaining work that had not been. Of course, Ayers Sherwood worked out pretty good, too. So. Mercer, there was remaining work that had not been completed by start of school. That work is moving forward. I just got an email from the contractor. It looks like in the next several weeks, he will be done with that, at which point in time, then the owner, Bob Vanderwood specifically, myself, and the architect will go through the building and create a punch list with the help of building staff, because they will identify things as well, and then they will continue to work on that before we close out and pay them. Summit, same thing, but Summit, the work is done. The punch list work now goes on. At Turpin, the auxiliary gym new offices, the new offices and the auxiliary gym space, which is quite a big area, are going to be occupied, operationally occupied, by Dave Spencer and his crew November the 8th. So that is, that's moved along quite nicely as well. They've gained a little bit of time on that as well. That'll give us the swing space for students to be able to occupy the auxiliary gym. Right now, if you went into the auxiliary gym, you wouldn't know it's a gym. It looks like a bunch of classrooms. And so that will allow us to take the space that the administration currently occupies and start to begin the renovation of that space. In the lower level where all the science rooms are, we had reduced the summer scope so that we would be successful there, and there were 2 or 3 rooms that were remaining to be done, and they are a physics room down there and a consumer science space. The physics room will be done by mid-November, and that consumer will follow after that, and we left with, I asked John, what you call it, the old shop is engineering room, and that will follow that. By the first of the year, I think all of that space is complete as well. The new bleachers are being installed, and I understand within the next 2 weeks are going to be done.
Yes.
So we're in good shape there. Wilson, same kind of scenario with Wilson and Summit. The work is done, but there is punch list work that remains, which is the owner, the contractor, the owner, the architect walk around, make sure if anything's not right, we identify it. Includes building staff as well, and then that becomes part of punch list, which the contractor then is responsible to do, and so that will, they don't get paid until that piece of work is done. So you'll hear me say not much other than punch list or closeout is continuing on those projects. Pictures have been going as I've been speaking, so if there's questions, and I'll be here for any questions on change orders. Okay, any questions?
Is the grass all done at Wilson now? Is that all good? I was unclear on.
The grass is not all good at Wilson.
It's being
area,
redone.
Right up against the building and coming in the drives is good, but the front area had a lot of rock remaining, and it had gotten seeded and strawed, so the contractor is making additional effort. I will tell you, unless it's a good stand of grass without rocks, it will be our recommendation to hold money until spring or until additional remediation can be done. But I don't intend to see you left with a field of stones. It is greening, though. I've seen aerial pictures, and I think they are testament that it's greening.
It looks like they went back today maybe and spot seeded and straw. Yeah.
But the district's owed a full stand of healthy grass, and so we'll make sure that that's what we get.
Involved in some of those discussions with the grass at Wilson, and we will have a good turf there when it's over the last month, I've had an opportunity to work with Mr. Zimmer and others, and I appreciate the time that you've been with us and working with us. It's been very helpful to me. Mrs. Scott, I apologize. I have not gotten back to you. If that does not happen this evening, it will happen tomorrow. I promise you. I don't know why I didn't. I'm sorry. I'll get that taken care of. Change order 9-2. This is at Anderson High School. The first one you see there, change order number 12, is for some underground electrical vault work that needs to be done for future planning. And also, we needed to do some things with the rooms there at Anderson High School, which required some summer cycles and phasings to be changed, so that's part of that. Change order 13, relocating ice machine. 14, electrical things that needed to be done. And on down the list, furnishing, installing electric ranges, and wall thickness in an area of the building that we did not anticipate the pipe would be that large, and so we couldn't tell that on the drawings at the beginning. 14 is a request after the county inspectors came through, we need to make some changes with the electrical and the fire systems in that building to make it meet the expectations of zoning. And there were some chase walls that were put in room 104, which is similar to another drain pipe issue that we had in another part of the building where we needed to conceal that. So we have those things there. Change order 15, there were some roofing modifications that needed to happen on the roof there at Anderson High School, where the roof came together in a place, and to put the HVAC system on top of it, we needed to do some structural work and do some seaming work there that required some adjustment. And also, with that, there was some piping and chase that needs to be done with that. So I recommend that the board approve change orders 12, 13, 14, and 15 as submitted by Performance Construction in the amount of $96,975. Change order number 9-3.
Oh, excuse me. We have a consent of 9.3 to 13.2. Should we be doing it 9.2? Is there a reason we had 9.2 out?
Yes, because I'll be abstaining from 9.2.
All right, so why don't we
Do that first.
do I have a motion to accept the change order of 9.2?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Giuffre?
Mrs. Hubner?
Yes.
Mrs. Bessinger?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Abstain.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes, thank you. Okay, now 9.3.
Change order 9-3 is about an expansion tank to be added to a water heater over the temperature. Pretty much when the water is heated, the temperature goes up, it's run out so the system doesn't become pressurized. At Summit Elementary, change order 9-4. I recommend the board approve the change order submitted by Mark Spalding Construction in the amount of $2105 at Mercy. At Summit, we had some drainage pipe in the restroom that needed to be replaced and fixed, and that was underground and would not have been seen in the original drawings. We also had some technology changes in that building that we dealt with, not only there but at other sites, and so those changes you see there before you. And we needed to add a condensation pump in the second story where it was leaking, and it needed to have an opportunity, like a sump pump, to let that water rest and then move it out of the building using a pump. And so I would recommend that the board approve the change order submitted by Mark Spalding Construction in the amount of $8,242. Turpin High School, change order 9-5 includes 3 items. We needed to add ceiling tiles in the corridor area there where the new elevator shaft was put in, and it needs to be a 2-hour rated ceiling. And that's because after the inspection took place, they thought that the walls actually went all the way to the ceiling, but they don't, so we need to have a roofing put in there, or a ceiling put in there, so that it is a safe area. Change order 26 is revisions to the HVAC and electrical plans. This was necessary as the piping had to come through the kitchen as opposed to the original design, as the original route was not able to accommodate piping, and this was because the existing opening in the floor was too small for the mechanics that needed to be put in there, so it needed to be rerouted outside of the building. Requires flashing, requires all sorts of things with that pipe. And then we changed the chilled water pipe routing to an air handling unit on the top of the building. And again, here we needed to, instead of piping under the roof, it needed to go above the roof. And so there's some insulation that's different that's added to that to make that happen. And so I recommend the board approve the change orders 25, 26, and 27 submitted by Monarch Construction in the amount of $62,919. Change order 9-6 is at Anderson High School. This was an unforeseen condition. We had to remove asbestos from that building from behind some caulk boards, and that was not visible when the drawings were complete. And I recommend the board approve the change order submitted by Sinise Environmental in the amount of $10,422. Last one is change order 9-7. On June 12, the board approved this work for the Transportation Department to have the modular units come in. That work needed to be extended once the units got here. There was a conduit pole for telephones that was not on site, for some fire alarm system-based after the inspections took place, and for a small repair due to damage as it was being transported to the facility. So I recommend the board approve the change order submitted by Atkins and Stang in the amount of $14,639.
Thank you. We'll move on to curriculum as part of our consent agenda. Natasha?
Item 10.1 is the supplemental books for English Literature Grade 12. Those have been on display in our office since the last board meeting. So the superintendent recommends the board approve the new supplemental books for English Literature Grade 12 as shown. Item 10.2 is a service agreement for our professional development coming up on June 4th. And just a little note about this, because this will be an event we will invite all of you to. The author of the book Innovator's Mindset is coming to present to our staff. And what he studies is Carol Dweck's work of having a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And in a fixed mindset, you're thinking that you're born with a certain skill and there's really nothing more you can do to enhance it. Growth mindset says you believe that with hard work and determination you can do something. Well, an innovator's mindset is it's about action. It's about actually taking that belief that you have and turning it into something. And so George is very inspiring and will be coming to help us as we continue to build that culture of innovation and collaboration in our school district. So the superintendent recommends that the board approve the service agreement as shown in the attachment and mark your calendars June 4th so you can join us.
Is there a time and place?
It's going to be at Turpin High School.
At?
Probably 8 o'clock will be when he will speak. Yes. Thank you. And item 10.3 is the Miami Valley Christian Academy Auxiliary Funds technical support. The superintendent recommends that the board approve the attached quote from Cross Tech Solution Group to Miami Valley Christian Academy for contracted IT services through June 30th, 2018. This will be fully funded with auxiliary funds throughout Forest Hill School District. And I do just want to note, just to remind you that these are part of the private schools receive money from the state, but we administer it here in the Forest Hill School District, and Megan oversees that work. And so we want to just make that note for you tonight, and note that we work with a coordinator. James Lambert was with us this last time in making sure that those funds are the appropriate use of those monies. So we take that role very seriously. So thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Thank you. Nope. Okay. Move on to 11.1, Human Resources Report. Tammy?
Item 11.1A, retirement. Tracy Paling, teacher at Sherwood. And this is effective at the end of the school year. Item B, resignations. You see some non-teaching and supplemental resignations. Item C, which covers F, G, H, and I. Next page. Item D, change of salary. Item E, change of assignment. Item F, we do have appointments starting on page 2, going on to page 3 and 4. Item G, special services appointments. And I will say, you see work beyond contract to support students with disabilities at Nagel. You'll see from pages 4 through 7, we asked them to be proactive. We've asked our administrators to be proactive and look at their calendar, and Nagel was very proactive and have given us dates all the way through May. On page 7, district professional development, IS meetings. Page 8, continuing. At the top of page 9, we do see item H, which would be the appointment of coaches, consultants, and advisors. And that goes on to page 10. Item I, substitute personnel. That also goes on to page 11. Item J is the home instructor, teacher, et cetera, salary schedule for 18-19 and 19-20. And since the regular board meeting, the staffing has increased to 800.73, as we discussed a few minutes. The superintendent recommends the board approve the HR report as presented.
Questions? All right, thank you. Next up, Student Services. Betsy.
Item 12.1 is our career cruising agreement that I spoke about earlier. This is an approval to request the career cruising subscription services. The annual cost for the subscription is $18,646.50, and I had promised to recognize the Forest Hills Foundation in this to fund $45.64 for the elementary subscription products. So we're very appreciative of their contribution to that. I do need to add in this particular contract, this has been weeks of months of communicating with Career Cruising and our council. There is an addendum attached to this because we wanted to work through some specifics. So there is an addendum with revisions specific to indemnification, 8.1, that there's a time of notice, a governance by the United States versus Canada has been included in there, and we've added the 3 sections related to fees and term, and obviously consultation with council, and as you can see from that. So I just wanted to point that out as to why the delay in getting this contract before you. So the superintendent is recommending the board approve the agreement and addendum for career cruising services from August 1st, 2017 to June 30th. Item 12.2.
Let me ask you real quick. That addendum was, that's the one we received this afternoon. This is not yet a new one, so we've seen this one. Thank you.
It's not been changed. Item 12.2 is an overnight field trip request from Anderson and Turpin High Schools. And this is our second half of the school year, our second semester for the OHSAA competitions in the event that our students may qualify. Last month I presented the first half of the school year. So the superintendent is recommending the board approve the tournament trips for the student athletes for the above mentioned teams. Item 12.3 is an overnight trip request from Anderson High School to go to Tokyo, Kone, and Koto, Japan, July 15th to the 24th. I do need to make a note here, and we have made the note in the agenda that this is for 2019, not this coming summer. There will be a $4,100 cost fee for student, which includes their airfare, lodging, meals, as shown in this agenda item. And this trip is being arranged through the tours. The superintendent is recommending approval for this overnight trip by Anderson High School Film and Theater. And item 12.4 is a stepping stones agreement. This is a contract for an out-of-district placement for a student to provide educational services and aid services for a resident student that is requiring a more intensive setting. Council has reviewed this as well. We have made changes specific to service months and general liability insurance on that, so I just wanted to make that note. The superintendent is recommending approval for the resolution to contract with Stepping Stone Center as shown in the attachment.
So on that one and 12.5, we're doing a resolution of intent to contract, but we don't have the contracts yet, right?
We do have the contracts. We did not include that for the
Oh, I now understand the explanation.
those student names.
I got the explanation, but until now I didn't get it. Now I get it.
So, but to clarify, so we have, the contract has the student names in it, so that's not part of our public record.
That's correct. So one is with Stepping Stones, very similar to previous contracts I've presented for our out-of-district placements. This next agreement is with the Children's Home of Cincinnati. Again, same purpose for placement and educational services and to provide land services. Again, wanted to assure you that council has reviewed all of these and we've made specific requests for some changes to them. So the superintendent is recommending approval for items for the Stepping Stones and the Children's Home Agreements, items 12.4 and 12.5.
Thank you. Next up, Treasurer Report, 13.1.
13.1 this is a resolution to convert the debt on the central office from taxable bonds at 4.43% to tax-exempt bonds at 2.88. This is a bank-qualified issue, and the holder is Huntington Bank. Everything from the original agreement, the debt service schedule will remain in place as originally authorized by the board when the debt was issued March 29, 2016. And just as a side note, I'll be meeting with bond counsel to review all of the debt of the district and become familiar with all of the nuances on Wednesday. Brad Rui with Densmore Shoal.
I guess at this point, it probably would have been better to do this beforehand, but I would like to introduce everybody to Rob Giuffre. He's our new interim treasurer. He has quite a lengthy and wonderful resume. He is currently and has been in the past with Great Oaks for the past 10 years. He is retiring from Great Oaks at the end of this year, but will be helping us out for at least the next 3 months and into the foreseeable future. So I would like to welcome Rob Giuffre.
Thank you. I'm nervous.
Hey, Rob, could I ask a question on that?
Yes.
Was that, was the paperwork on 13.1 prepared by Densmore and Shoal?
Yes.
Okay.
And it will be, actually, Brad Rui will put it together over the next couple of months, and all Dr. Heiss and I'll do
The only reason I ask is
sign.
my husband works there, so.
Oh.
Yeah, so I need to do what Jim has done earlier tonight.
Oh.
And that's abstain.
Yeah,
So-
just for those of, when we have, in my case, my law firm represents Performance Construction, so when issues need to be approved by the board, I abstain, and what Ms. Bissinger is talking about is there's an issue in which her husband, his law firm is involved, and so she abstains. That's what we're doing.
Would you like to entertain the motion second vote on it now before I continue on, Dr. Heiss?
Yeah, why don't we do that? Why don't we, can I get a motion of 9.3 to 12.5?
I move that we, is that what you want?
Oh, I was thinking if you wanted to vote on 13.1, we can do it after I give the treasurer's report.
Yeah, then we'll do 13.
Apologize. Okay. So for the treasurer's report, item A, we have donations. The Forest Hill Foundation for Education is providing a total of $13,467 in teacher grant awards in 5 buildings, including Anderson High School, this Nagel Middle School, and also Maddox, Mercer, and Wilson Elementary School. There's $3,000 of that is for the Anderson High School musical, and then the Maddox PTO is donating $5,469.11 for lounge chairs and green screens for the elementary. Item B, statement of board accounts. Just a reminder that federal funds are reimbursement funds, so when you see those negative balances, those are the reimbursements in the following months. Items C, D, and E. In the general fund receipts, expenditures, and encumbrances, those percentages are right on where they need to be for this time of year. It looks very good and very healthy. Monthly bank reconciliation, I've gone through the detail of that, and it reconciles as it should. Investment portfolio, I'll be meeting with J.B. Ward from Fifth Third to review the spend-down schedule for the construction project tomorrow. And then on Thursday, I'll be meeting with Nick Vakari with Meter Investments, who are also the custodian for the state of Ohio. So that'll cover all of our debt and all of our investments this week. Item H, appropriations are being amended to a net increase of $8,000. Item I is requesting approval for the board service fund expenses as listed. Item J is requesting a transfer of $106,279.25 from the general fund to the capital projects fund to make the debt payment on the central office. And item K is requesting authorization for the 2018 employee carriers and rates, which includes a 7.9% increase for health insurance. So with that, I'd make a recommendation the board approve this report, as well as consider approval of items 9.3 through 13.2, less 13.1.
I move that we approve on the consent agenda items 9.3 through 13.2, accepting 13.1.
Second.
Mr. Giuffre?
Mr. Froman?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Huebner?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And Dr. Heiss?
Yes. Can I get a
I
motion?
move that we approve item 13.1.
Second.
Mr. Giuffre?
Not going fast enough. Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Huebner?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Abstain?
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes. All right, thank you. We'll move on to item 14.1, Business Advisory Committee Report. I believe there was we had a Business Advisory Committee meeting in the last month.
Was. And Mr. Smith has a report. If you'd like a consolidated report of that, I have that.
Okay, I've got the report for the Finance Committee meeting. You want to give the report for the Business Advisory Committee?
The Business Advisory Council will be meeting downstairs in the conference room in the central office November 9th at 7 p.m. We'll be working on an agenda between now and then, and we'll try to get a draft agenda out as soon as possible. Suggestions are welcomed.
All right, thank you. Policy Committee report.
Okay, we met for the fall update with Tom Durbin, and Susan was there, and Mike was there, right? And were you there? You were not there.
In spirit.
Yeah, you were there in spirit, because I talked to you on the phone, that's why. And Randy and I were there, and I left for a little bit to talk to you on the phone, so Randy took over. But anyway, so we have all these policies before you. A lot of them have to do with technology. I believe that the vast majority of them are revisions based on law. You can see where it says revision, it's typically based on law. One of the policies that I think is of particular importance for us right now is that the recognition and amenities policies, which are 6223 and 6880. I encourage you to just take a look at those before the next meeting, because we had kind of put a hold on what we thought we could do, and we are now certain we're in compliance with the law, and we are, again, able to have a little more fun with legal fun with how we can spend money on things with food and such. So take a look at those, and the next time we will vote on them.
Very good. Next up, 14.3.
We did
Human
not.
Resources Committee?
Yeah, we did not meet, but had we couldn't have provided a better report than you got tonight.
That's true.
anyhow.
Solid report. All right, 14.4, Finance Committee report.
The Finance Committee met on Monday morning, October 16th at 9:30 a.m. in the district office. Let's see, we had the superintendent and treasurer and Tracy Hubner and myself attending. Meeting began with discussion about expectations for the treasurer's participation in future Finance Committee meetings. And the topics reviewed, just to summarize, the most important one, I think, was the long-term district revenue position and the need, again, to affirm the need for an operating levy in May of 2019. The amount of that is to be determined. That's a little bit farther down the road. We did talk about the interest for a citizen committee, and Superintendent Prebles is already working on that. As usual, he was a couple steps ahead. The committee is to include key community communicators, and the focus group is planned for November 2nd. Reviewed a few other items, including the Board of Education expectations of the treasurer for board meetings. Rob did explain the public finance resource forecasting model software that he uses. This is standard software that we understand is used by most treasurers in the state of Ohio. Next Business Advisory Committee meeting, as you mentioned, is scheduled for November 9th, and we will probably have a Finance Committee meeting scheduled sometime in December as our next meeting. That's my report.
Thank you. Curriculum and Student Services Committee report.
We have not met since the last board meeting, but we are meeting next week on October 30th at 7 a.m.
Yeah, that's what we talked about.
But it might
We may have to
change.
circle back on that.
So that date might not happen.
Correct. All right.
Sorry.
Safety Committee report.
We are meeting on November 3rd.
A lot of meetings. Next week's going to be busy. All right. Forest Hills Foundation report.
Forest Hills Foundation did meet on October 4th, and it was right prior to the soiree. So, of course, a lot of the discussion was about that. The treasurer reported that the tax return was filed. Under the superintendent's report, Natasha gave a presentation on Project Lead the Way. The soiree has since happened since last time, and even though we talked about it at the meeting, I can now tell you the soiree raised approximately $55,000. So that's pretty awesome. A lot of work went into that. It was very nice, and thanks to Wellington for hosting us. Let's see what else. The alumni engagement reported that the 2018 golf outing planning has begun. It will be on July the 20th, which is a Friday evening at Legendary Run, and it'll be 9 holes this year, so start forming your foursomes. The Distinguished Alumni Awards Luncheon is March 9th, 2018. Nominations are closing November 15th. The community, under community outreach, the all-in donation drive happened the week of the Anderson-Turpin game. I don't have a report on how that did. I don't know if you know, Randy, but I can give one next time, but I know it was successful. I'll let you know next time. Under program initiative, 190 students took the Forest Hills practice PSAT test on October 1st right here. It was kind of fun to watch kids come in. A number of us worked. It was a beautiful day, and I don't know, the kids were there, and I think some of them, I think their parents may have signed them up, but it was well attended for a beautiful day. We've had beautiful weather lately. The Destination Imagination Team Information meeting was held on September 14th. There are 20 teams so far. The deadline for signing up is November 1st. As the treasurer reported, the Teacher Grants Review Committee met and selected 9 grants to fund a total of $11,465 in this grant cycle. I think there will be another cycle later in the year. The Prize Patrol, which is basically the committee that decided the grants, visited classrooms to award them on September 15th, and it was reported to be very fun. So that's it.
So July 20th is a Friday.
Yeah, isn't that what I said? It's a Friday?
It's a Friday?
That's what he said.
Okay.
Did I get it right?
Oh, you got it right.
Okay, good. Okay,
confirming.
thanks.
Okay, and the Forest Hills Teacher Association report, they do not have a report tonight. I do appreciate you being here.
Legislative.
Oh, sorry, legislative.
Don't forget Randy.
I know.
Skip Randy.
Almost made it. I tried. Go ahead.
I just want to add something to the foundation report. I also appreciate everybody who attended the soiree. Now, I understand there was another important event in the district that occurred that night, but for those of you who were able to make it, really appreciated it, because the soiree has become, it's really cool to see it. It's become one of the key events in the Forest Hills community, and just by virtue of the amount of money that raises now, that's become significant. But anyway, now moving on to legislative, the House and the Senate are back in session, so that means we have to keep our eye on them. Just 2 bills I want to mention. One is the Senate Education Committee heard testimony on House Bill 170. This bill calls for developing academic content standards and model curricula for computer science. In addition, it also addresses educator qualifications for teaching computer science, so that'll be interesting to track. The other bill, which absolutely bears watching, is Senate Bill 216, which is called the Ohio Public School Deregulation Act. This covers a whole basket full of different topics, and without going through them all, it's just, again, something that we need to keep our eye on. It's a mishmash of a whole lot of things that they're trying to accomplish in one bill. But anyway, next meeting, we will have a guest legislative speaker. Senator Steve Wilson will be with us to give a report. So that's my report.
Senate Bill 216, I went last Friday over to Mason, and the Cincinnati area superintendents are meeting together to develop a common theme regarding those deregulation activities or portions of the bill. And I think it's possible that something will happen potentially statewide during the Capitol Conference that's coming up in November. So there is a lot going on there, and that would be very helpful to districts like ours.
Great. All right, we will now go into executive session. Our next regular meeting of the board is just after Thanksgiving on November 27th. We do not anticipate any actionable items after our executive session. I do appreciate everyone coming.
I will, pursuant to our Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G1, I hereby move that the board adjourn to executive session for the purpose of considering the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, compensation of a public employee or official.
Second.
Why don't we do,
Is that
Is there
it?
any other reasons?
the only thing would be maybe legal counsel?
Scott, is there another one? Oh,
Yes,
Dawn.
I notified him that
Right.
possibility exists.
And also, perhaps pursuant to our revised code, section 121.22G3, I hereby move that the board adjourn to executive session to meet with board legal counsel to discuss disputes involving the board and/or the school district that are the subject of pending or imminent court action.
Mr. Giuffre?
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Huber?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And Dr. Heiss?
Yes. Again, thank you.